Hey guys, what's up? So I haven't made a video in a while, I'm sorry for that, but sometimes I just don't find the topic that I want to talk about or I don't have the time to do it, so then I take a bit of a break. But now I'm back and you don't need to worry, there will always be new videos on this channel. I'm not neglecting it. Also, I want to say hello to everyone who has subscribed to my channel recently. You are all very welcome here. I hope you're enjoying the content. I hope to see you guys in the comment section and get you on board as active members of this channel. Now, let's get right into it. I want to talk about Oculus Rift today because they have just announced that they want to develop or that they are developing exclusive games that will only run on Oculus Rift. They said specifically they are working on around 12 games. They also put 10 million towards indie developers to hopefully, get more exclusive games out of that. They said that not all games they're working on will be exclusive. Several of these titles are announced to be exclusive to Oculus Rift, but obviously Reddit freaked out completely. People have expressed very harsh critique on that decision, and they're even going that far to now say, we are boycotting the device. I wanted to buy an Oculus before, now I'm not doing it because of this decision. They're basically saying that Oculus/Facebook are now using console tactics and they are just fragmenting the VR market, which they are kind of doing, if you're honest about it. But let's look into it a bit more. I mean, I hate exclusive games, right? Any game that comes only on PS4 or only on PC or only on Xbox, I just hate it because in my opinion there is literally no reason to do that, specifically with the x86 architecture now on PS4 and Xbox One. It would be so easy to bring games to other platforms. Obviously, it's a political decision, it's a money decision. Sony and Microsoft want to sell consoles. The easiest way to do that is to have exclusive games. But I just really hate it. Now, when confronted with that issue in regard to games on VR, Palmer Luckey, who is the inventor of Oculus VR, said the following: extending VR support to multiple headsets is not as simple as a patch. It requires pretty deep integration into the code of the game, integration that developers themselves have to spend a lot of time integrating and updating. Now, I think they could do it if they want, obviously. If you have a game and you want to bring it to Project Morpheus or you want to bring it to the Vive, you probably could do that. I think it is less about the effort of translating a game from one device to another. I personally think it is more about the compromise that you have to make there in the experience. When you remember E3, it was all about VR. You could try all the devices there. You can try the Vive, you can try Oculus, you can try Sony's Project Morpheus. It was all there, and everyone who went through this experience of trying all these different devices said that Oculus is by far the best optimized device in terms of latency, in terms of tracking. Further, also, Oculus just purchased the company Pebbles. It's a company from Israel, and they are mostly focused on hand tracking systems. I don't think they're going to put these hand tracking devices into the launch version that will launch in early 2016, but at some point we will get some kind of hand tracking system that comes with the device. And now put yourself in their shoes, right? So you have a game that is optimized for Project Morpheus. It runs on PC hardware. It runs with a very low latency. It just performs really well on that particular device with that particular setup. You take this game and you translate it to, let's say, Project Morpheus. You have less powerful hardware, so you're going to have to make visual compromises. The latency is not as good on these devices, so it will cause seasickness or nausea, however you want to call it. The hand tracking system has to be translated into a controller or in the Move controllers. If not everyone has the Move controllers, then you need to use the PlayStation 4 controller, which is not a bad one, obviously, but it really changes the experience. So people are going to complain, right? People are going to come forward and say, this is a shit game, it gave me nausea. But it's not actually about the game, it is about how the hardware translates the experience. And I can understand that they don't want to make a compromise, because when it comes to launching a new device like a VR goggle into a market, you want to use any advantage to make your device look as good as possible that you can possibly use. Now, another argument that Palmer, like he said, is that they have been funding the development of these games exclusively, right? They pumped all the money into it to make these games happen. And now, obviously, clearly, they want to use it to their advantage and they want to put these games exclusively on their device. Another thing that Palmer Luckey said in regard to that is that some titles might end up on other devices, but I make no promises. Oculus is focused on launch, and I think that just supports what I just said. I think Oculus just really wants to establish themselves as the most successful device in the first, let's say, year or something. And I would imagine that after a year, when they are actually the most successful, most sold device on the market, I don't know if it's going to be that, but let's just assume that for a second, I think then they will put an effort in bringing games to other devices and trying to translate experiences to the Morpheus or the Vive or whatever it is. However, one thing that kind of bothers me a little bit with this is that we're already seeing no games for VR, like dedicated games that only run on VR. And I made a video about this prior to E3, that I want to see more games that only run on VR, and they are tailored experiences just for these virtual reality goggles. And we saw a few at this year's E3, but in my opinion, it's just not enough. And you can imagine that when you already have very few games, and they're going to be even more fragmented because every company wants to make their own little exclusive deal with people because they want people to buy their device, it's just really shit, because you're going to have a device and there are nearly no games for it, at least in the beginning. But to be honest, I think that you can't really judge Oculus for doing this. I mean, Sony is the same. They have just opened their Northwest studio where they're working exclusively on Project Morpheus titles. And I mean, you don't honestly believe that any of these games will come to any other VR goggles, right? Maybe one or two or whatever, but I think the big chunk of games that Sony is developing will also be exclusive for Project Morpheus. And I'm not saying that's great or good or bad or whatever. It's just how it is, because everyone is trying to use their advantage, play the cards that they have, and it's kind of a natural decision from a business point of view, at least. Now, another argument that was brought forward, is quite interesting in the Reddit thread, was that people are saying like, right, Oculus, you wanted to create an open source device, right? You want to create something where everyone has a dev kit, everyone can develop for this device. And Parmalucky is still sticking to that. He made that very clear, like, we still want everyone to be able to develop for the Oculus. But if you want to be so open source and you don't want to put the effort in translating games onto other devices, why don't you just give the code to, let's say, Steam or Valve, right? If you want the game to come out on Vive. And he said in reply to that, that is just not how the real world works. People blame the company that sold them the software when it stops working, or potentially worse, when it looks terrible because of poor performance. We're not going to take a financial risk or support a nightmare of saying, yes, just use these workarounds at your own risk. So again, like I said earlier, I think he's less concerned about the effort of translating a game on another device and like just going through all that work that has to be done. I think it is much more about making really clear to the consumer that the Oculus is the ultimate VR device. That's the message he wants to bring across. And then you could actually argue that when you translate the game to another device and it's shit on that device, it would actually support that message, right? Because you use it on Morpheus and you're like, oh, that shit, it makes me seasick. And you use it on Oculus and you're like, wow, that's fantastic. So it actually highlights their advantage. But I can see where he's coming from, and personally I think this whole call for a boycott that you see on Reddit right now is just bullshit. I mean, honestly guys, did you expect that the world of VR is going to be all pink and lovely with unicorns jumping around? We could have seen it coming a long time ago. It wasn't really a surprise to me that there will be exclusive games that only run on one or the other device. It completely makes sense to me. It's not a nice thing and I wouldn't support it. I would do it differently personally, but I think especially in the beginning, launching a new piece of hardware, it just can't be avoided. It's just how the market works nowadays. So I think don't overreact, see where this is going. And personally, I can only recommend wait. When VR devices are coming out, just give it a year time, right? You don't need to be the very first early adopter who plays this on day one. Just give it a little bit of time, see how it goes, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see platforms opening up and we're going to see games that run across all platforms, also from third-party developers who, once these devices are established in the market, are going to open up a bit more and develop games that run exclusively on VR. So guys, these are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you can leave me a like. That would be much appreciated. You can also share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think this is the right decision from Oculus and Facebook, or do you think they are really just fragmenting the VR market and causing more trouble than they actually do good? Leave all that down in the comment section below. You can also subscribe to my channel if you have not yet done that. Otherwise, guys, take care. I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you next time. I'm out. Bye.